some free advice for you. 2 good things for you. Number 1, wear a mask. It's not great for sound. And number 2, if you love this work and you love helping people and you want to make sure that you still have a role to do, join Pipla, because it may not be as good for your health as a mask, but it's absolutely essential for the health of your profession. Personal Injury Plaintiff Lawyers Association, Pipla. One more acronym to learn. And I know it drives everybody mad, but I think it was something that we really needed. The one thing I learned during my 10 years on what is now the Legal Practice Council, but was the Law Society of the Northern Provinces, and my time on the Gauteng Law Council, and my time on the Johannesburg Attorneys Association, is if you want something to happen, do it yourself, get involved. One of the most important places where Pipla is going to get involved, and we have already briefed senior counsel as well as junior counsel, is in this whole fees issue. And the biggest problem isn't that if you work on a contingency fee basis, which a lot of attorneys don't work on anyway, that your advocate's fees are going to be included in your 25%. Sure, that's a problem. The problem is how your fees are going to be calculated in the first place. I've never heard anything so outrageous that your fees will work in future on the basis of what your client earns. So if you're representing somebody who is poor and doesn't have much income, you're going to get paid, according to these proposals, on the magistrate's court tariff. So you must continue to finance the case. And I must say, somewhere we should all be charging interest and registering as interest loaning entities, because it's becoming farcical. You're expected to finance cases for 3 or 4 years when banks will not even lend you money. Nedbank turned me down for an overdraft saying, "But Mr. de Broglio, the Road Accident Fund itself advertises the poor financial situation it finds itself in, and so we can't give you an overdraft." I've been a customer of theirs for 25 years. I'd like to think I'm doing fairly well, even though not so well in the last few months, just the same as everybody else. But they can't give me 1 cent of overdraft. Last year they offered me 4 million at a certain time, and I thought, well, that's a little bit mean, but whatever. Now it's nothing, because the Road Accident Fund is in a bad financial situation. Of course, I've tried to explain to Nedbank that the Road Accident Fund is underwritten essentially by the South African government, but there's no getting that through to them. But we're now going to have our fees determined on the basis of what our clients earn. So if you represent somebody who was a hawker or was earning very little money, you're going to get paid magistrate's court tariff for the work that you do in the High Court and for the 2 million rand settlement that you get your client. So long before you start worrying about minusing the advocate's fee, if you work on a Contingency Fee Act basis, you're going to have to work out your fee. And you're going to work out your fee at about 1,100 Rand or 1,200 Rand an hour, times 100 or 200 hours, and then double it up. So in many of the bigger cases, you aren't even going to get close to the cap. So what gets deducted for the advocate is going to be absolutely irrelevant for you, because you're not going to get even close to the 25% in any event, because your fees are going to be calculated according to what your client earns. Have you ever heard such nonsense? Honestly, we drift closer and closer to socialism all the time, and one starts to wonder, as somebody who was actually a member of the ANC in 1993 and 1994 and voted for Nelson Mandela, at what point the ANC is going to stop running the economy of South Africa into the ground, because we just come up with all these crazy socialistic ideas all the time, none of which are going to work. But this is the most ludicrous ever. And we need to make submissions on that. We need to make submissions on that issue. And if we don't, you are all going to get absolutely hammered. So that is probably the biggest reason you should support Pipla now and give us money now, because the fees are a major issue. The bottom line is that there have been lots of organizations over the years, and some of them haven't survived very long. I think SARPL was tainted. I was not a member of SARPL, and I think we all know what happened with the history and the attorney who headed up SARPL and really was almost exclusively SARPL, between inverted commas, that now lives in Australia. And we haven't had an organization since then that has been dedicated to the cause of attorneys and advocates and the specialists that do this field of work. That is why we felt a need to set this up. I'd received many emails over the years from people who said, Michael, please do this. Michael, please do that. Michael, get involved in this. I really gave my heart to Aprev, and a lot of money, as you know, $1.5 million between me and all of the experts that work for my firm given to Aprev. And I think that Aprev did its job. Aprev's a human rights organization. Aprev is not about the protecting the rights of attorneys, protecting the rights of experts, protecting the rights of advocates. And I think there's a lot that needs to be done in that area. And it's not just, by the way, protecting their rights. There's a lot of unethical behavior that goes on in this particular field, and some of it's more minor, touting, for example, and some of it's stuff that actually needs attention. The initial survey that I did via my legal newsletter has been very positive. The overwhelming majority of attorneys don't believe that judges should become involved in those instances. And in fact, there's Supreme Court authority to say that they shouldn't. Many of you will say that this is already settled and that judges can involve themselves in the settlements. Well, then where would it end? Should every state entity have every settlement that it enters into with somebody being looked over by the judges? What's the difference between one that is settled at the Road Accident Fund's offices with them 10 days before the case, which isn't overseen by the judges, and one that is settled on the day of the court? Why should one case be overseen and the other case not overseen? One of the things that we need to look at is, should judges be involved when there's an agreement between a firm of attorneys and the Road Accident Fund? And in some cases, the person at the Road Accident Fund is extremely experienced and is in fact somebody who is an attorney. Should those amounts, when they're not even before the court, simply be lowered? Is that type of judicial involvement warranted? Is it needed? I don't know. I don't think so. And we need a decision in that regard. Some might say there is a decision. No, it's not. If you read the judgment, they are clearly obiter comments. Another area that we'd like to get involved is helping the Road Accident Fund reduce their costs. We've got lots of suggestions in that regard. Some of those suggestions were made to other entities and other organizations and were not put forward. And obviously there'll be politics and different agendas and different organizations and associations. And it's important for us to try and make sure that the compensation that the Road Accident Fund has and the money that they have is available to pay the victims. And you'll find that a lot of that money is not going to the victims. You know, there's so much attacking attorneys. Attorneys are getting this, attorneys are getting that. How much money is the state getting? How much money is the state? Every provincial health department in the country is putting in claims against the Road Accident Fund when they treated somebody that they were obliged to treat, who never had any money to pay them and would never have been able to pay them. And now suddenly, because it happened in a motor accident, they are running up some fees and lodging a claim with the Road Accident Fund. And that made the news earlier this year with that one entity, of course, not a firm of attorneys, so they can just straight take their 25%, allegedly, according to the media. And some of the media said it was higher, and I was told that it wasn't. But whatever it is, it seems to be on a contingency basis. So it's incredible that ordinary entities can work on a common law contingency basis, but Attorneys have long since forgotten about that. But we need to look at why are those provincial departments able to claim compensation from the Road Accident Fund when there is a duty on the state to provide medical care to the people. So everyone leaves that out of the story. I mean, we leave out of the story how much of that compensation that the Road Accident Fund pays out each month goes straight back to the government in the form of VAT, not to mention income tax being paid by attorneys. So there are a lot of issues like that that for some reason have never been tackled by people. And there's a lot of cost savings that I believe that the Road Accident Fund could introduce to make sure that people who are seriously injured in accidents get the majority of the compensation. And so that is one of our interests. And as I said, we did make submissions to other entities and those were not put forward. And that was one of the trigger points for forming a new organization. And I think all of you should join it. And that is definitely one of the purposes of putting this video together, but I wanted you to know more about it. Those of you who know me would know my track record. I have really been very behind the scenes on many of these issues over the years. I certainly motivated everybody to help Aprev, and I think Aprev accomplished what they set out to do, and now it's time to start focusing on different issues. And I've touched on some of those in this video today, but everything is possible if we have your support, and if we don't have your support, it's not possible. At a later stage, and I know this is the worst time in the history of this work to ask for money, we're going to ask for money. Because the more money we have, the more we can do. I'm obviously an expert in marketing and in advertising, and we certainly plan, when it is necessary, to challenge the Road Accident Fund in those ways. But for now, it's a time to try and work with the fund and make suggested amendments to the legislation for them. And we've already done that and have put some suggestions forward to the CEO of the Road Accident Fund. And it's obviously up to him to take those forward or not to take them forward. We plan to do many more things. And largely the modus operandi is going to be working with the best experts and hiring them to make submissions, draft legislation, or appear in court on a variety of different issues, whatever we think is applicable. We would certainly welcome your input in that regard. So drop us an email and let us know what you think we should be involved in, bearing in mind that we largely about protecting the interests of plaintiff lawyers. And we use the word lawyers because it obviously includes advocates and attorneys. I'm not quite sure why so many people have said to me it's not open to advocates. It's in fact open to everybody. There's even a category for concerned citizens to join. So you could refer it to your clients if you want. I'm not actively trying to recruit those types of members because I don't think they're really going to be able to add much, but they're certainly not excluded from joining. Your medical experts are certainly entitled and should join. And I think that all of you should do what you can in raising funds for us, because the more money we raise, the more we'll be able to do. In that regard, what I've found very useful is asking all of one's experts to contribute out of the money they get each month, out of actual payments, a certain percentage. At my firm, most of my experts have agreed to give 2% of what they paid to Pipla, but some firms have suggested 1%, but I don't think that you'll find any problem asking your advocates, all your medical specialists to contribute in that basis and send through to Pipla money on a monthly basis. Obviously, right now, there's not going to be very much, but the more we have, the more we can do. And if there's one thing I've been good at over the years is drawing attention to causes and raising funds. And I'm going to harass all of you about that because we really want to be able to do as much as we can. The other important thing is that Pipla is going to have its own newsletter. It's largely going to be articles by me, as it is with the legal newsletter. I set up the newsletter for Pipla on the same basis that we have my legal newsletter, and that is to keep a minimum of administrative work for me and for the staff. And so once you join, you get the newsletters that come out from that point on. You won't be able to get a newsletter that existed before, and you're not going to be able to ask, and can you have it sent, etc. So that's one of the good reasons to join Pipla. But the most important reason is that Pipla is going to be representing you. Pipla is going to be doing what we can for the people behind the scenes representing plaintiffs. And that might be experts, it might be actuaries, it might be medical experts, it might be advocates, it might be attorneys, even candidate attorneys. We're going to be representing your interests. And I think that the sign-up that we've had already is astounding. We already have 4 times the membership that I understood Sarpel had when it met its demise. So I urge all of you to please join Pipla, and as soon as we make our bank account details available, to contribute. If you're not in a position to contribute now because of the terrible financial situation with the Road Accident Fund, I understand that, but then contribute later. Those of you who have bigger practices, who do have bigger firms, please send us some money, help with a direct deposit, sign up for a monthly debit order, because all of those things, even if it's $2,000 a month, make a difference. I'm starting with $25,000 a month and a capital injection into Pipla of 75,000 Rand. And so we're going to get the ball running like that. But everything that all of you can do to help would be greatly appreciated and would make a massive difference.